Now, coming up next, we have exactly one of those. Gita Syahrani is the head of the Secretariat at Sustainable District Association. And it's a membership-based association established and managed by district leaders in Indonesia since July 2017. She will be talking about supply chains from a legal perspective. Please give her a warm welcome.
So, in Indonesia, if you're a Muslim like me, every year we celebrate this Eid Mubarak day, which means it's time for personal questions, right? So I was dreading it this year because they are going to ask, what do I do for a living? So I was dreading it until I see this image of herding cats. And that's exactly what we have to face every single day. Because as quoting Dorothea, we don't only need community-led leadership. We don't only need private sector-led leadership. We also need to put government back in the center, where their mandate and their responsibility are not only to regulate, but also to convene and to facilitate connections between individuals and also strategic partners. So, this is another slide that I used from a presentation that I used to illustrate sort of what's happening in between these stakeholders right now. The main problem with the disconnect are the level of trust, the level of unreadiness to open up. And when you think coming together through meetings and FGD and workshop is enough, it's not enough. We need, oh my God, so many coffee dates and so many honest conversation in order to break down that boundaries, to start talking about the real thing. What's in it for you? How can I help you? How can you help me? And this is the exact conversation that we try to do when we try to identify real incentives for sustainable jurisdiction. Because as a one research pointed in 2015, and again, it was actually confirmed today by the book launch by C4, there is no or very little incentive for jurisdiction to push for sustainability, let alone if you think about the politically elected leaders. There's no incentives concretely for them. So we came up with these 5 clusters to just identify who can be our supporters. One is, of course, the national government. There's national policy that can be an umbrella to whatever effort the subnational government is trying to push. For us, it's SDGs, it's emission reduction, and it's open government. But is there any incentives there? The answer is unfortunately no. We are still fighting for fiscal incentives to be trickling down from public finance in order to preserve and protect more forests. And these initiatives have been spearheaded by many organizations ranging from GIZ to the Asia Foundation to, I can think of 10 more. So that's one cluster. The next cluster is actually the market/investment that IDH was mentioning also. And this part is also a bit convoluted in terms of if you're a district government, you look at all of the different options, you might get confused also along the way. I'm talking about the jurisdictional certification, the verified sourcing area, the market-based incentives that is trying to be built through the carbon market. These type of information right now are still somewhat become a list in the jurisdictional mind. Then come the development partners. You have the Greenpeace scorecard, you have the WWF scorecard, you have the accountability framework initiatives, you have CCBA, you have the HCVRN, you have numerous numbers of different indicators that's trying to define what sustainable jurisdiction should look like. But most important thing that I want to highlight here, after the many coffee dates with all of the politically elected leaders, the things that keep coming up is actually for them, the most important incentives is their constituent, is their voters, is the people on the ground. So regardless the vision, green, blue, white, brown, whatever the vision looks like, if the constituent doesn't feel the impact, then it's not motivating enough. So how can we reach the constituent on the ground? We did a preliminary assessment with our jurisdictions, and it came up to health, water sanitation, and education. Something that might not be related to forest at all, but is it? This is the highlight of the 8 founding members of Sustainable District Association that span out across the region. It doesn't only reflect the ones with high forest cover, it also reflects the ones that have mistakes on the ground, that have chopped down all of the forest, and now are left with a lot of regrets and a lot of conflicts to be solved. But does that deny their rights to actually move towards a better pace? And can they be incentivized for that? We're trying to figure that out also along the way. What we're trying to actually define with the jurisdictions are, even if there are a lot of momentum right now, if we don't cluster the momentum in a way that is feasible and understandable for the district, we can come up with a lot of multiple efforts that goes on and on and on without actually trying to solve the problem. So from this exercise, you know how many criterion we ended up with? 567 criteria that needs to be filled with the sustainable, if you want to be a sustainable jurisdiction. Do we have time for that? I think the forest will be long gone before we can fill it all. So this is just an illustration of something that is feasible to be achieved if people agree on simple criteria that is doable and measurable. This is a blended finance project that are financed through the government funding, through development partners funding, and through private company funding. It maps out around 1,700 smallholders, palm oil smallholders in Indonesia, trying to match up the criteria of what they use as government, but also what the CSO believes. It drags down data from Global Forest Watch that the company is also using. So imagine if this happens, not only for the 1,700 smallholders, but for the 5 million of them across all districts in Indonesia, all 514 districts in Indonesia. Let's use the same measurement, let's agree on the mechanics, and let's agree on simpler indicators, preferably not 500 of them. And that's how the cats can be heard and how government can be upfront again. They can start looking at sustainability as opportunities and not as burden. Because honestly, right now, when it comes to sustainability, you can see all lazy eyes because they don't see the real potential value of investment, and it's not concrete enough for them unless you show them in a very concrete way like this. It's helping the smallholders, it's helping their constituent, it will get them politically ahead. Thank you.